In today's video, we're going to be talking about the best adventuring race inside of Mirandus. These 5 exemplars were handcrafted with hunting abilities that make them battle ready as soon as they step foot inside of the world of Mirandus. But before we get too far into the video, I first want to introduce myself if you haven't met me yet. So my name's Jake and I make speculative yet very informative content on the blockchain MMO Mirandus. And I do this by taking all the information that we've learned so far and breaking it down into small digestible videos like this one for you guys to watch. So, if you're looking for consistent Mirandus content and updates, then hit that subscribe button. I'd love to see you on this page again. If not, then I appreciate you stopping by and I hope to see you again sometime. But without further ado, let's get into the video. If you haven't gathered which race we're talking about today, we're talking about the Orcs. And the Orcs are kind of a forgotten about class. You know, not a whole lot of people pay attention to them, but they really should. So if people don't have enough money to buy an elf for, say, damage or DPS or tanks or heals, the Orcs do just as good, if not better, in certain areas as far as fighting goes. Now, a lot of these Orcs are made with some kind of scouting ability or just some kind of handy adventuring ability, and we'll get into those more in detail here in a second. As I mentioned earlier, there are 5 different exemplars in the Orc race. There's the Orc of the Long Hunt, the Orc of Certainty, the Clearblood Orc, the Bone Orc, and the Beating Heart Clan Orc. So let's actually start off with the Orc of the Long Hunt, and this one, it used to be my favorite exemplar, mainly because it was my first exemplar. And to preface all these readings, all of this information is coming from a website called learnmirandus.com. And Learn Mirandus, I don't know who made it, we don't really know. If you made it, like, let me know, or if you know who made it, let me know, because this site's amazing. It's got such great information and such detailed information on all of the different races and all of the different exemplars in those races, all of the different buildings, pretty much anything you need to know about Mirandus. So here's what Learn Mirandus has to say about the Orcs of the Long Hunt, and this one's actually pretty short. It says, long, difficult searches are typically of their people. It provides them with a sense of adventure and excitement for lengthy amounts of time, allowing them to capture the most elusive and valuable game. And then it says, can go longer without food or sleep. Now, we do know that in Mirandus there will be a food and a sleep gauge, and each of those, I think, is going to determine how quickly your energy raises, because there's also going to be an energy bar. If you didn't participate in the last playtest, you probably don't know, but those of you who did, you realized that the energy was kind of annoying, because you could only shoot like 1 or 2 arrows without running out of energy. And that's if you weren't running or moving whatsoever. So anything you do inside of Mirandus is going to require energy, any kind of action. Whether it's casting a spell, whether it's walking, hitting something with a hammer, whether you're crafting something, all these things are going to require energy. And these guys are going to let you go longer without food or sleep, just going to allow you to go longer with a higher energy regen because your food and sleep stats are going down slower. I hope that made sense. That was kind of a lot, but yeah, you get where I'm going with this. These would be really good for solos, I think, because if you're out by yourself and you don't have a whole lot of inventory space, these guys are going to be able to not have to hold so much food and also not have to pay to sleep anywhere to rest. So that's why I originally bought this guy as my first exemplar. Now, let's talk about the second orc, and the next orc that we're talking about is the Orc of Certainty. And here's what Learn Mirandus has to say about the Orc of Certainty. Orcs are driven by instinct. They're clever, strong, and deadly in the wild. Some people think that their natural abilities give them a distinct edge because they can think and make difficult decisions in the same way as humans do. Some orc tribes have honed their most powerful instincts, giving them a decided edge in hunting, survival, and combat. Orcs of Certainty are one such tribe. They've embraced a level of insight that's well beyond the comprehension of humans, allowing them to detect aggression and fear in others. These orcs are nearly impossible to deceive, since they almost always have an advanced warning. Orcs of Certainty are Orc Exemplars, and they have a special trait called the Trace of Danger, which allows them to detect hostile creatures and the greed and avarice of those guarding treasure troves. So, that's actually a pretty cool ability, because that's going to allow them to while they're out walking around in unexplored areas, or maybe even an area that has been explored. It's going to allow them to sense aggressive creatures and know whether or not they should go in a direction or not. Because Mirandus isn't going to be a game where you go out and you just try to kill everything. You're going to pay so much money to cemetery owners if that's what your plan is. So, as the devs have talked about before, Mirandus is a game of survival and they want it to be kind of scary. So this guy's going to kind of give you an edge in that sense, because you're going to know whether or not you can go into a certain area or if it will aggro a monster. I think that these guys, and there's another orc that I want to talk about on this too, but I think that these guys will make a really good scout for a party, because if you have this guy in your party, he's going to be able to tell you whether or not to go into a certain area if you're trying to get to a boss room and trying to conserve resources as you're trying to go to a boss room or go to a dungeon. Otherwise, without him or without a scout, you're going to be pretty much just walking around blind trying to get to your dungeon, but you're going to be running into other monsters on the way and maybe have to use resources. So that's why I think that having some sort of orc of certainty or one that's coming up would be a really good idea. The next orc that we're talking about is the Clearblood orc, and their ability is pretty unique, and it's not very, I don't know, maybe I'm seeing this wrong, correct me if you guys think otherwise, but it's not very versatile. But maybe that means that poison is going to be a super big thing inside Mirandus. I don't know, we'll see. But here's what it has to say about the Clearblood orcs. The Clearbloods are a particularly odd race of Mirandus orcs. With curiosity, even their fellow Mirandus orcs from other tribes regard them, and any outsider who sees their customs is likely to find them disturbing at the very least. Unlike the majority of orcs, who are uninterested in the inner workings of their bodies, the Clearbloods have a strong focus on medicines. But to outsiders, most of their dozens of medicines are considered deadly poisons. Some Clearbloods are able to build immunities not only to the effects of those poisons, but also to the consequences of all other poisons in the world by regularly administering these medicines throughout their lives. In order to be initiated into the Clearblood, orcs must endure a number of painful procedures. However, as exemplars, Clearbloods are immune to almost any poison because of their inherent trait called toxin release. Now, this is something that has actually been addressed by, I think it was McCarthy at the last Gallivers. So he talked about, or whoever it was, talked about how exemplars' abilities need to be really strong in the sense that, like, if you have a Clearblood orc that has a little bit of poison immunity, like, there's not a huge reason to have it. So it was said that these Clearbloods could have complete immunity to all poisons, meaning if you're not going to take any damage from poisons. So that could be really, really handy in certain areas of dungeons, maybe, or maybe a certain weapon type is laced with poison. Maybe instead of taking the poison damage from getting shot with a poison arrow, you only get the arrow damage and negate the poison. I'm not sure. There's several different ways that you could, theorize about this, but I think that these guys have a potential to be really, really useful in a certain niche of exploring. Now, obviously, if your goal is to stay around Citadel, these guys aren't really for you, because it sounds like these guys are like, knee deep in the nitty gritty. They're out there and exploring and doing dangerous things. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be running into poison. But yeah, these guys are pretty unique, and they're very niche. So if, I definitely think that it's a good idea to have one of these guys handy if you need it. Because if you find a dungeon that has a treasure in a super poisonous area, then obviously you need a Clearblood or a ton of medicine. Now, the next exemplar we're talking about is the Bone Orc. And here's what it has to say about the Bone Orc. In the native areas of the Bone Orcs, the jagged limestone cliffs stretch for miles in all directions. These rocks are so common that orc bands have inhabited cracks and fissures for centuries, forcing them to build their homes within. Only by chance and accident did many orcs meet their deaths as they slid or tumbled. Accidental impallations were not uncommon, especially among seasoned fighters. That's kind of funny. The orcs were made to be ultimate killing machines, and they have remained so ever since. They are not known for their great dexterity or balance, but only those with the toughest flesh and greatest ability to heal could survive and thrive throughout history. The healing orcs of this region were known by outsiders as the bone orcs over time. Their natural healing abilities are so potent that even broken bones are said to be mended rapidly with ease. They have now taken pride in being referred to as Exemplars, having a talent called improved mending. Bone orcs are resilient to bleeding and heal quickly. Now, with this being said, this obviously screams tank. So everything that was talked about is pretty much, they're super tough and they heal quickly. So this exemplar might be the best tank in the game. The only other one that would really rival this one, and I've talked about this in previous videos, would be the Bright Sun Elf. But we don't know how the mechanics for the Bright Sun Elf work. And briefly, I'll talk about the Bright Sun. So the Bright Sun can turn sunlight into health or energy. So you could see how that could be useful, but at the same time, if you're in a dungeon and there's no sunlight, then the bone orcs would obviously be the best tank, and there's no other exemplar that would really rival these two. So the bone orcs have the potential to be literally the best tanks in the game and necessary in certain aspects of the game. So man, I need to pick up a bone orc. I don't have one of these guys, but I do know that they're going to be a super used class. Now, it did mention something about healing, so it's possible that they are healers as well, but it seems like they're just, in my eyes, I see them just being tanks. And then maybe the Bright Sun that I mentioned, the Bright Sun Elf, I think that they might have the ability to share their heals. But, we'll see. And it could be a deal where, because we don't know how the mechanics of Mirandus are going to work, the battle mechanics, but it could be a deal where the bone orcs maybe increase their magic stat, and their magic stat allows them to, or mana stat, and their mana stat allows them to cast healing spells. But yeah, we're getting a little far off subject here. So I think that the bone orc is going to be a necessary orc as far as fighting goes. So if you want to do fighting and you want to be a universal fighter, like this guy, the bone orc, is going to be a fantastic exemplar for you. And the last exemplar we're talking about today is the Orc of the Beating Heart Clan. Now, here's what it has to say about the Orc of the Beating Heart Clan. Orc hunters inspire terror in those who go alone in the woods for good reason. They have a sixth sense that allows them to see the blood of their prey flowing through its veins and truly see it. The Beating Heart Clan is a clan of exemplars who have made this sense into an amazing art form. They may be found all over the world. Hunters by profession and inclination, they're killers by instinct. Orcs with this ability can locate life forms' heat signatures around them on the hunt. So this is actually the other exemplar that I thought would make a decent scout, because basically what this guy's ability is it allows him to see where other creatures are on the map. And I think this differs from the Orc of Certainty in the sense that the Beating Heart Clan allows them to see where the monsters are, but the Orc of Certainty maybe lets them see where the aggro aggro radius of the monsters are. Maybe I'm understanding that wrong, but I think that that's how it's meant. But obviously not everyone's going to be a scout, not everyone wants to go and do dungeons and fighting and everything like that. So for this exemplar, I think that he's going to be a fantastic, if not the best hunter in the whole game, because he literally allows you to see where other creatures are. So if you're out hunting for deer, we'll say for instance, you'll be able to see where the deer are and sneak up on them, and you'll probably be able to get a lot more meat than someone else who's not using the Beating Heart Clan orc. Obviously food's going to be very important. Everyone needs food, which means this guy could be a really big moneymaker for certain people, because if you bring in lots of food, then obviously you're going to be able to sell that for lots of gold, silver, or materium and be able to make a lot of money. So if you enjoy hunting in games, then I would definitely grab this guy. If not, have him as like an off character or an alt character that you only go hunting when you're bored or something like that. that covers all 5 Orc Exemplars, so you can see why I said previously that these guys are really good adventurers slash fighters, because every single one of their abilities are tailored towards adventuring in dangerous areas. If you guys have any orcs, let me know down in the comments, or let me know which one is your favorite orc. So for me personally, I used to say orc with long hunt, but I think that I'm gonna have to go with the bone orc, because the bone orc is going to be potentially the best tank in the whole game. And so I think that he's going to be super widely used, and I'm definitely going to pick one up after making this video. So thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate y'all, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace, guys.